This is the Conservative American Message, hosted by the one and only Cam Lau. It's Saturday, February 18th, 2023, and you can join me every week for the greatest political commentary known to man. The Kansas City Chiefs defeated the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday in Super Bowl LVII. The Chiefs. How is that still allowed? The Redskins got the boot, but the Chiefs are still okay? For now, anyway. The Redskins was never a racist name. The team was actually named to honor the Indian football player and coach William Henry Lone Star Dietz, but a bunch of uninformed white leftists decided that that's a racist thing. They say that the word redskin is just as bad as the N-word. Really? We're allowed to use white and black casually, so what's the problem with red? Well, it looks like the Chiefs are still safe, so we'll just see how long they can last. The wokeism in the NFL didn't stop when Washington became the Commanders. There's always a slew of patriotic songs that precede the national anthem, but before that they had to kick things off with the Black national anthem, a song called Lift Every Voice. I guess this has been happening for a few years, but I never realized that that's what it was. I just assumed it was some patriotic song I'd never heard before. But this year they seem to make an extra big deal in the media and make sure to point out everyone who didn't stand up for this song. I don't understand why the left insists that black people have their own separate culture. They're trying to keep them segregated. Certainly they're allowed to celebrate their African culture no different than me celebrating German culture every time I crack open a cold beer. But this is African American culture, and it's just one more way to push us all apart. We're all Americans, and we have one national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner. It's not just for white people, it's for everyone. Now, I'm not even going to address the halftime show. If you like Rihanna, good for you. It's not my kind of music, but it's really just not political. There were two positive things to come out of Super Bowl LVII. First being that the Eagles lost. Secondly, a $20 million Christian ad campaign. It was funded by many Christian organizations along with the owner of Hobby Lobby. Now, the great theologian Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took issue with the commercials. She posted a tweet that said, "Something tells me that Jesus would not spend millions of dollars on Super Bowl ads to make fascism look benign." She hasn't clarified what that even means, but it can be assumed that she's referring to a scene in one of the commercials that showed a picture of protesters screaming at police in riot gear. Then the message appears, "Jesus loved the people we hate." Once again, the left hates unity, especially when it comes from Jesus. And you know what, AOC? If you have such a big problem with a commercial being about Jesus, now you know how I feel when every commercial, every day, all year long, has gays in it. I want to interrupt you here in the middle to tell you to grab your phone and go to the description of this episode. There you will see a link to the Conservative American Message Instagram and Facebook pages. Follow it so that you can provide feedback and always stay updated on what we're doing with the show. The show has been growing so quickly and I'm really shocked, but our social media has pretty much plateaued. If you don't use social media because you're afraid the Chinese government is watching you, it doesn't matter. They'll just send a balloon to fly over your house. China has always had various means of espionage within the United States, between TikTok, satellites, and who knows what else. So it seems strange that the Chinese would step into the 60s and use a spy balloon. This leads to a lot of conspiracy theories that the US government is actually putting the balloons up there to distract us from something else. And I'm not going to discount that theory because it's not really all that crazy. The US has shot down several of these balloons, each time using a Sidewinder missile, which costs about $400,000 a pop. And then Biden says that not all of them were actually Chinese. He's not really saying much information about anything right now. It is difficult to know what UFOs are what. According to the Department of Defense, since March 2021, there have been 163 balloon-like UFO sightings reported. So it's got to be hard to determine what's really going on. My thoughts, which are purely based on random guesses, are that the first balloon was Chinese, a few might have been aliens, and the other ones were the US government trying to possibly distract us from what's going on in Ohio. What's going on in Ohio, you might ask? Well, spy balloons aren't the only strange thing seen in the sky recently. In Ohio, there was a massive black cloud of toxicity after about 50 train cars derailed, some of which were carrying vinyl chloride, a hazardous chemical used to produce plastics. I guess there was a risk of the derailing train cars exploding, so they decided to release the vinyl chloride into a trench and light it on fire. Some of the gases that are created as a result of that were used as chemical weapons in World War I. Being close to the state border, both Ohio and Pennsylvania have worked together to evacuate their citizens that lived within so many miles of the disaster. They've now been told that it is safe to return based on air tests conducted by the EPA, but some experts are disagreeing with the state governments, claiming that the tests should have been done in individuals' homes, and homes should have been cleaned. The railroad is already trying to pay out settlements to everyone in the area, but lawyers are urging not to take it because we have no idea how much this will affect their health long term. To me, this disaster is a major transportation problem, so you would expect some involvement from the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. But as you can probably guess, he has had nothing to do with it. He did basically the only thing he knows how to do, blame Trump. Seriously, he claimed that this is all because under Trump, a tiny rule about different types of brakes on hazmat trains was changed. That rule was changed because the research indicated no difference in the safety of the other brakes. Classic Trump administration move to put unnecessary regulation in the garbage. But if it was a terrible decision, and that's the cause of this derailment, why did Pete himself not act to change the rules? He has been the Secretary of Transportation for 2 years. What can you expect when you get a job just because you're gay? And no, that's not homophobic. I'm not saying that a gay person couldn't do a good job. All I'm saying is that Petey has no qualifications and got the job solely based on his sexuality. Even Biden has totally failed to address the disaster. The governor of Ohio requested disaster assistance from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. He was denied. FEMA basically said, well, we would rather just deal with hurricanes and tornadoes and stuff, so no thank you. The federal government is a joke. Pete Buttigieg is a joke. Biden is a joke, and this is the greatest podcast of all time. Well, that's all I have time for. Were you offended by this podcast? Good. Thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate you all. Have a great week and stay conservative.